What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to yet another video here inside the nerdy realm and the multiverse. We have got the 5th episode of Moon Knight, so today we are going to give our thoughts and break down as much as we can for the 5th episode of the series titled Asylum. This episode was a pretty big one, so if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend clicking off now if you don't want any spoilers. Feel free to come back here when you have seen the episode for yourself. Let's talk about all of the big things that happened in this episode, and oh my, were there a lot. Then we can get into our thoughts on everything. This entire episode took a huge deep dive into the backstory and history of Mark's life, and it was an emotional roller coaster when it came to all of that. We got so much between Steven and Mark, and in one scene I believe we may have even seen Jake Lockley in control of the body towards the beginning of the episode, but that could be a stretch. Let me explain though. During the scene where we see Mark, or who I believe to be Jake, wake up inside of Harrow's proclaimed doctor office with a bandage on his nose, which is a big tie into the comics by the way, but when whoever it is talking in this scene, he sounds completely different and has somewhat more of a New York accent. He also seems a lot more anxious and violent. This could possibly be Jake, but who knows, as we haven't had any name drops for him yet either. We see so much of Mark's backstory, and a lot of it was so emotional to watch, and we got some nods towards the comics as well. We see how Mark had a brother who sadly passed away after drowning in a cave that he and Mark would hang out together in. This all led to Mark's mother growing a strong sort of hatred towards Mark, which led to her being abusive and causing a major drift between the two, eventually leading Mark to leaving his mother and father behind. This also seems to be a big reason as to how Mark developed his dissociative identity disorder, as Steven would come out whenever his mother would get abusive. Mark basically opens up everything to Steven about how Steven has had a perfect life and didn't have to experience anything that Mark had to, which led to him revealing that his mother had passed away some time ago. We see Mark struggling in another extremely emotional scene while outside of his mother's Shiva. We also get full-fledged confirmation that he is Jewish. I'll talk more about this later. We get to see how Mark became Moon Knight as they went back to the time that Layla's father was killed during a mercenary operation ran by Mark's partner, who Mark said he got greedy and killed everyone. Well, we got confirmation that his partner was in fact Bushman, who I mentioned in my last video. Bushman also shot Mark in this predicament and he was going to die. However, all of this happened outside of what seems to be a temple of Khonshu's. This is where we see Mark turn into Moon Knight, and we can really see how manipulative Khonshu is and how long it has been going on. Even after all of the opening up and sharing his life with Steven, the scales never came to balance, which means their souls will be claimed by the unclaimed souls in the sands below the boat. Even when they fought all of this off, Steven ends up getting taken and is turned into stone in the underworld and gets left out of the field of reeds. As the scales finally end up balancing and the episode ends as Mark is in the field of reeds. Now that we have touched a bit on the major things that happened in this episode, let's get to giving our thoughts on it all. This episode was absolutely stunning and beautiful. It was such a deep and emotional episode, and it was easily my favorite episode of the series so far. I truly cannot explain how happy and satisfied I am and was when I saw that we got the representation that me and many others have been hoping for in this episode. This is something that I have honestly wanted ever since I was little, and what I mean by this is the fact that Mark Spector is in fact Jewish, and that we in fact have got the Jewish representation. It has always been a huge part of his character, and seeing them put it into the story of the series, even if it's not exactly like it was in the comics, is enough for me, to be honest. We saw him and his family wearing their kippah, and we saw that his family was having a shiva for his mother. Representation means a lot to me, and as someone who is Jewish, this was very important to me, and it all felt satisfying enough to put a smile on my face. I am so glad that they did not forget to add this into the show. Next we have to see Jake in full character, which I expect will happen in next week's episode. The constant references to things from the comics, whether they were big or little, such as his backstory or the Bushman mentions in this episode, are really cool to see adapted into the show, and I love how they're even trying to pull some parts directly from the comics themselves to put into the show. I see a lot of people saying there isn't enough action in the series. While I can see why people think that is an issue, issue. I personally do not have any issues with that being the case, because Moon Knight's character as a whole is a ton of storytelling rather than constant fights. I'm curious to see if we will be getting more mentions of Bushman or even seeing him sometime down the line. I could really see him appearing in a second season. Not so much this season, as next week's episode is already the finale. I am really hoping that we do get a second season, because this show has been great so far as well as impressive. And honestly, Oscar Isaac deserves some type of award or something for his acting performance on this show, because it is so impressive. This series is still a full 10 out of 10 for me, honestly, and this episode was truly beautiful. That's about it for this episode. I cannot wait for the finale, and I can't wait to hear if we are getting a second season or not. Let us know what you thought about the episode down in the comments below. Now, before we get out of here, I want to let you all know to make sure that you stay tuned. As we all know, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is right around the corner, and of course we will have videos on that dropping, but we also have some other things planned that will be announced sometime soon, so make sure that you stay tuned with the channel here and on our other socials. We also have some things planned for when the final episode of the first season of Moon Knight airs. With all of that being said, if you are feeling extra nerdy today, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on to help support the channel and to get more nerdy content from us. And if you wish to support us even further, feel free to check out the links in the description. Thank you all for watching, and as I always say, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.